welcome to Online Seller UK podcast. My name is Prabhat, founder of Online Seller UK, and today we'll be talking about AI. And I'm joined by Tom from Jingolytics, and we'll be talking a bit more about finding out how AI you can use to optimize your Amazon operations. So, Tom, welcome to our podcast.
Hey, yeah, happy to be here.
Excellent. So I think it's good for you to introduce yourself and your company, and we take it from there.
Yeah, so I've been a seller on Amazon for 10 years. I started in board games. I also sell in the children's clothing category. And 2.5 years ago, set out to kind of solve the data problem on Amazon. So answering questions like, why did my sales go down? How can I improve my listings? How do I improve my sales, my conversions? These sorts of things were always kind of a puzzle to me in operating my own businesses. And so I kind of set out to solve the problem, and Jingolytics is the result of that.
Okay, cool. So, well, I did a little bit of sort of research before we start recording this podcast itself the day, and it looks like as if there is an assistant, and I can ask questions and things like that. So, so talk me through what sort of questions people are asking lately with the using Jingolytics, and are they getting any answers for this?
Yeah, so I guess the way the Jingolytics assistant works is it has access to all of your Seller Central data, and it has access to a large language model, which is the foundation of what most of the generative AI tools that I guess people are using in the last 18 months or so are built on top of. And the Jingolytics assistant will take your natural language prompt, so a question that you would have previously potentially asked the business analyst, a brand manager, or someone of this sort. They'd have to go kind of pull together a bunch of data or look at a dashboard or do some amount of effort, and then come back with an analysis with that data in mind. With Jingolytics Assistant, you type it in a box, hit enter. 5 seconds later, you get a visualization of the data that is relevant to making that decision, and then an analysis that kind of provides direction on what you may want to think about. The assistant will also ask you questions if it needs clarification about the question that you asked it. For example, if you were to ask it something generic like, what are my best-selling products? That could mean profit, that could mean sales, that could mean units sold. It could mean a number of things. And the assistant in that case may make an assumption and say, okay, they must be talking about units sold, so I'll deliver them that information. But in the response, it'll also say, I don't actually know what your best-selling product means. Did you mean units sold? Did you mean profit? Did you mean the one that has the most ad spend? And you can converse with the AI in that way and kind of get to meaningful insights in that conversation.
Yeah, it's looking really interesting when you are talking about that conversational way of talking.
We're calling it conversational analytics. So kind of the current thinking about how analytics works is you kind of use interfaces or like computer systems to kind of manipulate data and find insights. We're building the future where you just talk to it, similar to how I'm talking to you right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I was hesitating to use the word. It's looking scary, but I've said it now anyway. So it's interesting how things are changing, and things are changing fast. That's what it is. It's not like you're waiting 5 years and 10 years. It's changing really fast. So, so you've obviously interacted with a lot of sellers using Jingolytics, and what sort of feedback are you saying? Are people asking things which they thought they would never ask before, or and is it helping to make decision faster? So what sort of feedback are you getting these days?
Yeah, so I guess one thing we hear kind of every day is, holy shit, or wow, this is unbelievable. We also hear things like, well, what am I going to be doing instead? And the answer to those sorts of questions are, you're going to be doing what you actually want to be doing, which is building amazing products and serving customers. The kind of legwork to go and analyze the information that comes out of those decisions is kind of the work that the assistant is really, really good at. And so you can kind of spend less of your time digging through data and spreadsheets and pulling together reports to kind of tell a story. And you can spend more time building your brand and ultimately serving your customer.
Excellent. And from agency point of view, actually, agencies do report whatever periodic, monthly, weekly, or meetings monthly. I think with the tool like this, I think that need isn't there, is it?
Which one specifically?
So rather than reporting monthly, weekly, or meeting with the client from the
Mhm.
agency point of view, with a tool like this, it's not required, is it?
I guess we look at it a little bit differently where like I also am a brand owner and I
Mhm.
employ a few agencies. And even with the Jungle Ducks assistant, I still want the agency to tell me like what the goals are, how they're tracking to them, and like what work they did that achieved the goals.
Mhm.
Um, so the assistant is a great way for me to go and kind of potentially circumvent the agency for some basic questions or some analysis in addition to the analysis the agency is doing. But it's by no means kind of like uh, getting rid of my relationship with the agency because at the end of the day, somebody still has to do the work, and the assistant isn't doing the work. The assistant is analyzing the metrics that are coming out of the business and providing suggestions as to how to make the business better.
Yeah. Okay. It's that's pretty cool. So, with AI, there are some people obviously take positive note to the system they are seeing, like yourself, like any other AI system. So, but also there are others who don't have a right concept of AI, and then that leads to misconception of using of AI. So, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the main misconceptions that we see with people that kind of come to Junglelytics to use the assistant is that they think that the assistant should get every question right immediately. And it's it I mean, for a basic question like what was my profit last month is very direct and to the point, and there is really little interpretation to be done. That is generally true. But for a question that has nuance or doesn't necessarily have a right answer, um, often um, often the assistant needs to be kind of you need to have a conversation with the assistant similar to how you'd have a conversation with a data analyst, where you may go back and forth to understand, what is the right metric here? Or is this even the right question that you should be answering? Or I'm missing parameters to even be able to make that decision. That would be, for example, missing parameters would be how much inventory should I send in for this ASIN? The assistant does a great job of answering that question, but it needs to know your lead time. It needs to know how much safety stock you want to have. And so if you ask a question like this, the assistant will come back with a question to you, and then you need to answer that question in order to get to the result that you're really kind of looking for.
Excellent. So I think it's what you're saying. Look, obviously, it's quite interesting to see. I know I've not prepared you for this, but are you able to share your screen and then do a quick, couple of questions to see
Yeah,
um,
of
the,
course.
the nature of answers we're trying to get?
Yeah, of course. Share my screen.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
So this is the Junglelytics interface. You can literally type anything you want in this box, but let's start with kind of one of the preset ones, and then we'll go from there.
Sure.
So, do you have a preference?
I think profit is a big thing this year. So let's start with profit.
So last week, how much profit did I make? This is a pretty uh, simple one. It's a very direct answer. We won't have any questions back from the assistant. Um, we like to put these little chips here to show that the assistant is in fact um, using the time range that you had kind of designated. If you had an additional filter on here, like a product line or a region or something, that would also show up as an additional chip. And as you can see, in about 5-6 seconds, the assistant was able to answer that question. I have one prepared here that I like to kind of use because
Okay.
it shows the analysis. So I
Yeah.
just pasted it in here in the chat. I changed the hero image on my fleece sweatpants on 225.
Sure.
Was this a positive change? I'm just going to add 24 so it knows the correct year. So when I ask this question, the assistant's going to pull relevant information about kind of that listing for that time period and the metrics that are most important for analyzing whether a listing change was positive or negative. So in this case, it's determined that those metrics should be units sold and conversion rate. We may disagree with that, and as I've said kind of previously in this conversation, AI is a conversation. And so if I wanted to instead have it analyze it based on tacos or based on ad conversion rate or whatever metric, I could just suggest it here, say something like, actually, I wanted to know these 3 metrics, and can you redo the analysis? And it would then redo the analysis with those in mind.
Okay, that's pretty good. So I can see there's a conversion rate 23% between the February 26th and March 3rd. And from March 4th to the 10th, the conversion rate has gone down. So yeah, so can we ask a question why the conversion rate has gone down from in those 2 weeks compared, basically comparison? Now, these questions are very complex. Already the questions you've asked is complex, but myself adding to this is getting a bit complex. So
I've just typed in, can you help us understand why the conversion rate went down from the 2.6 to 3.3 time period to the 3.4 to 3.10 time period?
Yeah.
And so when we submit that to the assistant, it's going to go pull a bunch of relevant information and then give us a kind of brief synopsis of potential reasons why that may have changed.
Yeah. I'm just thinking as you're doing this, if I'm an agent, well, we're an agency, right? So if we need to audit a new account, and then plug in the Jungle Analytics into the new account, we can get a lot of questions or audit done quite fast, actually.
Exactly. That's actually one of the use cases we see people use Jungle Analytics for a lot.
Yeah. Okay, that's pretty good. So I can see few details there. So it's done its work to the best it can. Okay, brilliant.
Yeah, I think, and so again, as this is kind of a conversation, the assistant's given kind of some general guidance as to what could have caused this. But if we wanted to dig in and kind of have the assistant go deeper, we could say things like, can you use these additional metrics to determine if that was the case? And it will then go pull those metrics and do a better job of really diving into the data to make those decisions. If you notice in our prompt, can you help us understand why the conversion rate went down? We didn't say anything about use additional metrics to do so. So it was a generic question which received a generic response. This is one thing that kind of people that haven't used AI all that much, kind of a trap they fall into, where if what you put in to an AI system is largely what you're going to get out. And so being very thoughtful about the prompts that you put in and being extremely specific about what you want is a critical kind of skill to being able to, I guess, utilize this sort of a system to generate things that have meaningful value to you.
Wow. Okay. This is great. We've done a couple of questions and I feel like it can take in a lot of complex questions. So that's pretty good. So
one other thing that we see kind of people use it for that can be super helpful is asking kind of for SOP level guidance. So if you have team members on your team or even yourself and you're kind of struggling to get something done, whether it's adding a coupon or understanding how to add a user to your Seller Central, or even more complex things like what data is inside this API endpoint. The assistant does a great job of kind of highlighting those kind of workflows and even providing a step-by-step guide as to how one could go and do that.
I think we are a little bit early stage to even explore some of the complex questions by the look of it, but it's right. That's really interesting. So thank you for sharing and doing a demo for us. So if you could stop sharing the screen, that would be really good. So we are towards the end of the podcast. So yeah, it's really powerful. I can see that, and also, sellers would have lots of questions. Agencies might have questions. So where is the best place to find you, Tom?
Yeah, so you can find us at Junglealytics on Twitter, or at Tom Rohlf on Twitter as well, or TOM at junglealytics.com, JUNGLYTICS.com.
Excellent. Thank you again, Tom, for your time, and all the best. Speak to you soon.
Yes, thanks.